Welcome to this episode of Why We Plan. I'm John Brown, founder of BEI and the host of this podcast. With me today is Jay Edwards from New Hampshire, with offices also in Massachusetts. Jay is an experienced exit planner, does a lot of exit planning, and has a lot of good ideas for all of us. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So tell me about your practice right now. What are you doing? Your exit planning practice.
Yeah, we work primarily with business owners in our practice.
Mm-hmm.
We have a specialty with multi-generational family businesses.
Okay.
Because I have the ability to do some facilitation and that kind of work. I've done
So what's your background in all of that?
Well, it's from out here. I've done a lot of work with Purposeful Planning Institute.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a member of Family Firm Institute for a number of years.
Okay.
So I'm certified family wealth advisor, family business advisor through FFI. So I've had
Now, is that just a passion you have, or did you fall into that, or?
I think it's a passion. I think I found early on in my career that getting to the human side was really important with business owners.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work with business owners around family business systems. So we break apart the business, the ownership, and the family systems. Because a lot of times, what I say to clients is, you find yourself in this constant swirl where all those hats that you wear, they get blurred. And so we try to break the systems apart so that we can really start to examine what's the business look like, what's the family dynamics look like, and what's the ownership system look like. And you can start to see or create more clarity when you start to pull those systems apart.
Treat them each individually. How do you fit, or how does exit planning fit into that family representation process?
Well, there's, it's usually the biggest asset. In some cases, it's the only asset outside of a house or what have you. So, the big question is, to what extent is the family unit able to come into the business and succeed inside the business? So does it make sense now to transfer ownership to them? If not, is there insiders that are strong that can take over the business? And again, how does the family deal with that?
Yeah.
And then the third, obviously, is what's an outsider look like? Is this a case where nobody wants to take over the business, so let's cash out and then do something else with wealth?
Right. Or if the family can't agree, maybe a third-party sale is the best alternative. You divide the money rather than somebody gets the business and somebody doesn't get the business.
Yep. I've had a situation too where the father was like, I'm done, and when I'm done, I don't want anyone to have it. I don't want them to have to go through what I went to go through.
Wow.
And that was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So
did they end up selling the business?
No, they're still in that process, but his intention is to sell it to a third party at some point, probably in the next 7 to 10 years.
Wow, that's unusual.
It is, but he's had a lot of conversations with the kids, and they like working in the business, but they don't want to own it. So, and I don't know.
They don't want to work as hard as dad, type of a thing.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that too. There are kids that are in the business, but they don't have that entrepreneurial spirit that dad had when he started the business. And quite frankly, they want to have a life of retirement. Yeah. And by cashing out, they can take the cash and do what they want in retirement.
How old are the kids?
Oh,
30s?
Yeah, late 30s.
For a long time, people have been making statements, like the Gen X or the Gen Y, they don't work as hard, their interests are different, and they're trying to make this generational distinction. And I've always kind of fought against that. But I'm actually seeing that is pretty accurate a lot of the time. I'm just totally aside from exit planning, but I was just meeting with in-law of a next door neighbor of mine. She just moved into Colorado. She bought a professional practice, and she's like 33 or 34 years old. So I said, well, how are you going to build a practice and so on, even though you bought it? She said, well, I only want to work 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. That's her total life's ambition in owning this professional practice, and so she can probably make that work.
Right.
But I'm thinking, Boy, that's a lot different than other generations.
Well, I heard, I heard a gentleman speak at a New Hampshire Charitable Foundation event, and he spoke about the difference of each generation and what they bring to the table, and it's no different than what we're seeing with these next generations. And they're young, and they'll create something. They'll create something, but there's each generation takes from their parents or from their grandparents, create their own value systems, their own beliefs. But then what happens, we see, is that the next generations somehow create off of that. But oftentimes there's a flow from prior generations. Another generation will pick up the baby boomer values at some point in time. Because mom and dad were never around, so I'm going to be around, and then God, mom and dad were always there, but I want some freedom. So they create their own.
I think it's something as exit planners we need to be mindful of.
Yep.
Especially in family business planning, because if you're transferring to a third party, probably doesn't make much of a difference. But family planning, I think that's something I haven't paid enough attention to. It's good that you are aware of that. So, why exit planning? Why did you jump into this messy transition process? Because it's family.
Well, I just love business owners in general. I came into the business in the life insurance business, and my dad was a career life insurance agent. And the first thing they tell you when you become a young agent is go see all your friends, all your relatives, and practice on them, right?
Yeah.
Sell them. Well, my dad had sold all my friends' parents, so therefore all my friends had insurance through my dad. He'd sold all my relatives, so I couldn't go to them. And I had an aspiration to go into the hospitality industry, but then I realized that I wanted my nights, weekends, and holidays off. And so I sat down one day, I was like, well, if I want nights, weekends, and holidays off, then I can't be seeing families because you're going to see them at night. So my only market's business owners. So I started in the business.
What a way to get back into the best marketplace in the world.
Yeah, so I started in the business in '88 and going right out and seeing business owners. And, it was a great experience, and I got beat up along the way, but I learned a lot about business owners. And I think the other thing is it's also taught me to be a better business owner. We own a firm. There's 8 of us in the firm. I've got all the roles of a CEO. So when I'm working with a business owner, I'm sitting on the same side of the table as them.
You can relate.
Totally. And so it's just it's a comfortable place for me to be. It's a comfortable conversation for me to have with business owners. I can speak their language, and it's just, and I don't have a client that I don't love and enjoy. So
that's great.
And there's so much need. And that's the other thing. Our firm is such full service, and you sit down with a business owner, it's not kind of a one and done product sale like an insurance deal, right? You can come back meeting after meeting after meeting and add value.
So a couple of questions, probably a lot of questions. Owners are sometimes really difficult in terms of getting their attention of the need to plan well before they plan on leaving.
Yep.
How do you begin that conversation? How do you find the owner? What do you say to get them, once you do get their attention, to move into a an engagement?
It really depends on the owner I'm with. They all have a different agenda. So, I try to get in and work with business owners on other areas other than exit planning. So we can do, we've got a 401k shop, we've got a group benefits shop, we do wealth management, we do estate planning.
That's interesting,
so I can get in the door on a lot of different aspects, and from there you can start the conversation. So what, you started this business, you got into this business, at some point you got to get out of the business. When's that going to happen? When would you like to get out? And from there you can start to build into that conversation. I try not to manufacture a need. I really try to ask the good questions that vet out what's really most important to them at that particular time, what matters most.
What do those questions look like? When you're first meeting with them, let's say the first 15 minutes of talking to a prospective client, or maybe an actual client you've done a 401k with.
Yeah, I just go with the flow. I don't have an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Because every client's different.
Right.
I don't go in with any perceived message. I first try to just create some kind of relatability.
Yeah.
Some relatedness, and from there, I just feel the questions.
Right.
I think so it could be something as, well, I'll give you an example. So we went in on into a new client on a 401k case. One of my guys in my office brought us in. And as we were going through it and talking through kind of the 401k stuff, I just simply said, so the two of you guys now are new partners. And they're like, yeah, so we're going to be the new owners. And she commented that they're in the process of buying her dad out.
Uh-huh.
I said, oh, great. I said, so how long have you been in that process? And she's, well, it's taken us a long time, but we're just now kind of finishing stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, all right, so the two of you now are going to become partners. And she said, yeah. I said, well, have you done your buy-sell agreement? Well, no, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
I said, okay, so you haven't done any funding or anything in that area yet?
Yeah.
And she said, no. I said, well, let me ask you a question. What would happen if the two of you were clipped in a car accident tomorrow? Like, all of a sudden I started asking some disturbing questions. And our meeting, which was slated to be about 45 minutes, ended up being almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how I kind of just work my way into those types of conversations to see where they're going with things. So, long story, we're coming back to sit down and talk about, doing some advisory for Dad and for them and their new partnership moving forward. And so it's worked out great.
Yeah.
So that's why I try not to come in with any kind of set agenda.
Trying to find out what the owner wants to do, basically.
Yeah. There was a good question today that they were asking, one of the outtakes, and that was, what do you find that's kind of the most disturbing for you right now? I thought that's a good question. Those questions of what are you up to in life right now? What are you trying to create? I talk a lot in that kind of language with clients.
Right. And there's an assessment a lot of our guys use that ask those types of questions, and some will be concerning to the owners, others won't be, but they'll have an idea then what is concerning to the owners. So that's what we've honed in on, trying to understand what that is and if we can help. So.
Yeah, the big line I think I use the most is, you're here today and you've created what you've created. And then you've got goals or aspirations for something over here. And to the extent that there's a gap between where you are now and where you want to be, our job is to come in and help you bridge those gaps, solve those problems. Really is. And that's really I think the biggest explanation I typically come up with.
That is the essence of the first part of the planning process.
Yep.
Is there a gap, whether it's money, whether it's talent, whether it's not understanding what my goals are? We'll figure that out, and that's where we focus a lot of our attention.
Yep.
So in your case with the two incoming partners, it would be, well, one of the gaps is business continuity now if something happens to one of them.
Yep.
Because that'd be a huge issue for them, yeah.
The tool you were talking about, I use a lot.
The assessment tool.
Yeah, and so we've got two ways. We've got the journal, or the workbook, and then we've got the little
trifold,
the little trifold. And typically, what I'll do is I'll give it to a prospect and say, "Hey, here's a great way for us to start. Just fill out these simple questions, and what we'll do is we'll create this report for you."
Do you do that at the first meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what that does is it gives us an idea of what things are on your mind that maybe you're not focused on because you're focused on something else, but the questions prompt you to go, oh, yeah, I really need to be doing that. Yeah. And it can kind of give us now a starting point to have a discussion as to how we solve some of these things.
Yeah, so you're not a typical advisor who goes in, you've got something to tell the owner, that's what you're going to tell them. You have no idea of whether that's important to them or not.
No.
Instead of saying, okay, what's concerning to you? maybe, and once you find out, maybe you can help. You just see how we can address that issue.
Yep.
This is like, it should be client representation 101, but it's not how we as advisors have operated for a long time, especially an old lawyer like me. We've always thought, well, we have to come in and tell the owner what to do because we're the lawyer. We've gone to law school, and that's totally the wrong approach.
Yep.
So let me switch gears. Tell me how you work with other advisors, how you collaborate with them, whether it's the owner's advisors, I mean, typically they're CPA, maybe an attorney, and how you work with your own team of advisors, if you've even created other advisors you bring into situations.
Yep. I love teams. I am a team player, which is nice. I'd like to be a little bit more the quarterback typically, but not always. We get brought into cases quite a bit where, I'm setting back and I've got one particular solution maybe that they're coming out of. But typically, we'll try to work with their current advisors as much as possible. When we get into scenarios where, they're not the right fit for a specialty that we need to put in or something like that, we typically have other advisors that we work closely with.
How do you find those other advisors?
Just over the years of working, I've got, there's a handful of advisors that I trust that are efficient, put out a quality experience, and for instance, there's a particular estate planning attorney that I've worked with for almost 30 years. They'll get an estate plan done in 30 to 45 days, and I've worked with other attorneys that 2 years and it still wasn't done. So,
but you're also in a small population area. The density of population in New Hampshire is not exactly the same as New York City.
Well, correct. And so you can sometimes pull that in, I definitely have my favorites, there's no doubt. But, we've got another office in Pepperell, Mass. And so we've been doing a lot more work down in that northern Massachusetts area. And so I've been forced to have to, work with other advisors down there and start to find accountants and attorneys that work down there because they're our clients down there. But it's, it's pretty easy, but I'd like to be able to kind of control the flow because I find that, we tend to have a tendency to come in as the architects, right? And so help them to build out the plan and then bring in the other advisors to, just like bringing in a plumber or a roofer, to build a house.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor for what exit planners do.
Yep.
The owner tells us what they want the house to look like, how many bedrooms they want, and you work with them to run other design features, but the house is being built more by the lawyers, more by the other professions than whatever particular profession the exit planner is, because we're only doing part of the overall plan with our core practice, whatever that is.
Yep.
I think that's a great metaphor, which is we're the architects, and maybe we're going to do some other part of the house, but it's got to be built by the best craftsmen around.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so we can't write documents, and we don't do tax work, and we can't do appraisals and valuations and stuff like that. So you got to have a full team.
Yeah. How long? When you start an exit plan with the client, how long does it usually take before the plan is finished? Not maybe the implementation, but just from the time you get the ideas, you get the information, you do the plan, you work on the plan with the other advisors and the owners. Is there a time frame that you try to have all that fall in?
Depends on what their time frame is to get out. I've got 4 plans I'm working on right now, but there's no urgency. There's no I got to get out by the end of the year kind of thing. So we're taking them through the process a little bit quicker than their time frame, I would say. Because my job is to keep them motivated moving forward and to keep the advisory team moving forward. but I can't say that there's any like, hey, we're done in 9 months or anything else like that. I haven't had a case yet, which was, like a fire sale, like, hey, I want to be out by next June. Right. So I fortunately, I haven't had that kind of a scenario where I've had to have a time frame. But typically, we use a lot of times the Excel spreadsheet that you guys created. I use that a lot. Our system allows me to actually take all those cash flows and everything else and put them into our system, so I can actually show them cash
That's
flows,
great.
the tax calcs, and everything else. So I'm finding that process to take them through that usually is month and a half to 2 months, and then from there for them to be making some decision making, especially where it's insider transactions most of the time. Everyone's around, so it's not like I got a third party coming in, they want to cash out and get out. That being said, I'm working with a client right now who's got 4 offers on the table and to sell out, and that process is probably taking, well, we've been into the process only a month, and she'll be out by the end of the year. So it's been,
There's
that's
probably
pretty
not a
quick.
lot of planning work. It's just more of a tax planning effort, maybe. And
There's some tax planning, some definite cash flow planning. In her case, she's going to go from really making a lot a year down to a salary, because she'll stay on, for a couple of years with a good salary, but not like she's making now. So there's some cash flow planning there for her, and then also some investment decisions. She's going to walk away with, high 6-figure number, and so how do I plan this for the rest of my life, and creating an education fund for her daughter, and stuff like that. So that's a scenario where it's, and it's funny because being an outsider, she's got 4 parties actually almost bidding for her practice. Right. And so there's no need to bring in a Mike Coyle to do a valuation, because they're doing their own valuation, and they're going back against each other saying, well, we'll pay this for it or this, and it's just driving the price up. It's like buying a house, at the height of the market. Everyone's willing to bid up on the house because they want the house, and no one's really looking at, well, really, what's the value? Right. So this has been it's an interesting case to kind of.
That's an unusual case too, if it's a professional practice, especially.
So it's kind of fun to kind of go through that, because there's no heavy lifting. I mean, it's just like, it's like selling a stock, and all of a sudden now you're going to reinvest it.
That's great.